Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below so that you don't miss any more of my videos. Today's video, I have filmed twice. Actually, I filmed it 3 times, but this time is gonna work. My iMovie, for some reason, just doesn't want to upload my birth story, so I keep having to refilm it and then try and upload it. But positive thoughts, it's gonna work this time. So if you do not know, I had my daughter, who is sleeping right there, 3 weeks ago today. So I'm actually 3 weeks postpartum. I filmed this when I was a week postpartum and then 2 weeks postpartum, but like I said, today's is gonna work. I have my little notes here about what exactly went down on that crazy day. So if you have not already watched my birth story, make sure to go watch it. I'm gonna attempt to try and link it up here in the little iCard. I think I figured out how to do that, but I'm not 100% sure. So if it's not up here, it'll be down below. Okay, so let's get into my birth story before my daughter wakes up and wants me, because she just ate, so she shouldn't want to eat, but you never know. So, starting with October 13th, 2019, it was a Sunday. I started to have contractions that were about 6 to 8 minutes apart. Now, if you have not watched any of my bump dates, then you do not know that I suffered with prodromal labor so bad. So I had so many times where I was having contractions and just not dilating. So it was fine. I mean, whatever. They always went away. This time, however, they were not going away. So, I actually can't say that. Sunday night, they went away a tiny bit. They ended up just kind of tapering off. Monday, that continued. Tuesday, that continued. Tuesday night, I went to go see my midwife. I was 38 weeks and 5 days pregnant, I believe. Yeah, 38 weeks and 5 days. And I told her what was going on, and she felt horrible for me because it was excruciating. Also, I should mention, this little one was sunny side up. So I was having so much back labor. The pain in my back was like unreal. And it never went away for like the whole time I was in this prodromal labor. But it's okay. Or it will be okay. You'll see. So, at the midwife appointment, my midwife checked me and I was only a fingertip dilated, which was so frustrating because I was a fingertip dilated since I was like 32 weeks pregnant. But yeah, so I was only a fingertip dilated. So she said, all right, here's what we can do. We cannot induce you tonight because you are not 39 weeks. We can only induce you when you are 39 weeks. So, on Thursday, you could come in for something called therapeutic rest, and if you wake up and you're still having contractions, we can induce you. It'll be an elective induction, and we'll have to read you all the risks and stuff, but we can do it if you're so uncomfortable. I don't know what she's doing back there. Let's see if she goes back to sleep. Okay. So, I agreed. I said, all right. Therapeutic rest, by the way, is when they give you a medicine called Stadol and you sleep for like 6 hours and then you wake up, and normally people feel better, but I am not a normal person apparently. So fast forward to Thursday, it was October 17th, 2019. At 8 p.m. I went into the hospital to begin therapeutic rest. I was checked at 10 p.m. because after like all the paperwork and the blood work and everything like that, it took a little while for me to get put in a room and everything like that. So, and they have to give you fluids for like 30 minutes beforehand before getting the Stadol, because it does drop you and baby girl's heart rate. So you have to have 1 bag of fluids before getting the Stadol. So at 10 o'clock p.m. I was checked and I was still only a fingertip dilated. And again, I felt so frustrated because I felt like my body was betraying me at this point. I was like, I'm just never going to dilate. This is not going to end well. I'm going to end up in a C-section. It's just not going to end well. So they gave me the Stadol, which is like the craziest narcotic I've ever taken in my whole life. I would never take it again. They actually even offered to give it to me again. They said, you could take it again at 2 a.m. And I was like, no, no thanks. I'm good. I don't want that again. So I fell asleep at around 10:30 p.m. was when they administered the Stadol. And I fell asleep and I woke up at around 12 o'clock or 12:30 to back-to-back contractions. I was very confused because I fell asleep with contractions that were like 10-15 minutes apart, and then they picked up and all of a sudden they were like 4 minutes apart. So apparently my body just needed to rest for like a little while, and it sent itself into labor. So didn't need an induction, which was excellent. Did need augmentation, but I will explain that in a minute. So doctor came in at 12:30 to check me, and I was between 1.5 to 2 centimeters dilated. So I was making progress, and I was like, wow, this is crazy. This is awesome though. So they gave me something called a peanut ball to try and get baby girl to turn, because I was still having back contractions so pretty bad. I felt the tightening and the pain in the front, but most of the pain was in my back. And when they felt my stomach, sorry, there is a bird. I'm filming like by my window and there's a bird like right here. Anyway, and it just flew across again. So they gave me a peanut ball, which is basically this giant yoga ball type thing, but it's shaped like a peanut, so it's like an 8 kind of. And you put it between your legs, and apparently it encourages baby to like turn, which it did, but not for a while. So I had that peanut ball in between my legs for most of the day. I don't want to keep repeating that. Just know that pretty much every time they checked me, they gave me the peanut ball. So at about, they didn't check me again until the next shift change, because she said, you know, you're like 1.5 to 2, so I don't want to like I don't want to check you again. But they ended up admitting me and getting the process started for like admission, which is like a long process apparently, but whatever. So I continued to have contractions. I actually was able to get some sleep because they weren't terribly painful at all at this point. They were uncomfortable and definitely not like fun, but they were not horribly painful. So at 7:30 a.m. I got checked again by the midwife who came on shift at 7, and I was still 2 centimeters dilated. So she said, let's put in a Foley bulb, which is the most horrible part of my whole labor besides the pushing. But anyway, I'll get to that. So they put in the Foley bulb, which is basically a catheter balloon. I don't really know how to explain it, but it goes inside your cervix and they insert saline, and it goes to about 4 centimeters dilated, and they gave me 2. So I had one inside my cervix and one inside the my vaginal canal. So every time I had a contraction, the 2 Foley bulbs would push together to open up my cervix mechanically, which was terrible. So at 10:30 a.m. when I could not take the pain anymore and I was screaming, I got the epidural, which was a beautiful thing. I will have a video going up at some point about my epidural experience. It was quite an experience getting it put in, and the way it acted during my whole labor. I don't want to spend time on the epidural because it is a very long story. So I'm gonna have a story time coming up on my channel, probably, I don't know, within the next week or 2 of my epidural. So anyway, they put the epidural in at 10:30 a.m. So at 11:30 a.m. they gave me just a touch of Pitocin. Because I was having very regular contractions. They were every 2 to 3 minutes and coming strong and, you know, very regular. They said I had a great pattern, but they weren't as strong, I guess, as they wanted them to be to dilate me, being that I was already at 3 hours, I think, with the Foley bulb in. Yeah, like 3.5 hours with the Foley bulb. So they said, okay, we're gonna give you just a touch of Pitocin to try and increase your contractions, which it did. They started coming like consistently every 2 minutes, and they were strong or whatever, but I wasn't feeling them because I had the glorious epidural. At 12:30 p.m., the midwife came in and she said, you know what, I'm just gonna tug on your Foley bulb to see if it comes out. Well, she gave it just one little tug and the whole thing just came right out. So she's like, okay, great. So that means that you're probably about 4 centimeters. But she went and she grabbed the nurse, and then they both came in and they checked me, and I was exactly 4 centimeters. Probably between a 4 and a 5, she said, but I just say 4 centimeters. So that was great. I finally felt like I was making some progress, and everybody cheered, and it was just a great time. So yeah, so she checked me about 12:45 p.m. I continued to labor for the rest of the day, or for a couple more hours. And I was fine. I was able to get a nap or two because of the epidural, so I didn't really feel much. I was progressing nicely, so they just said, you know, we're just gonna let you labor and see what happens. I did find out they increased my Pitocin like 2 more times throughout my labor, but they never really told me that. They just kind of came in and upped it, which is fine. I, again, didn't feel it because I had the epidural. So, oh, there were a few times, though, that they had to come and, like, give me more epidural because it was, like, kind of wearing off. So, that should have been my first hint. Anyway, at 6:20 p.m., me, Brendan, and my mom were the only ones in the room. We were talking and laughing and just, like, whatever. We were talking about something random. And all of a sudden, in my pelvic area, I felt a small pop, and then all this fluid just came rushing out of my body. And they told me previously that I had a catheter in, so there was no way that I could have peed myself. So I knew it was my water. So I called the nurse and I said, hey, I'm pretty sure my water just broke. And she came in, she checked me, it was clear. And that was definitely a weird experience when you just have this water just constantly pouring out of you. It definitely came out more with each contraction. So like every couple of minutes, like just more fluid would just come out. And it was a lot. Like I didn't even know that you could have that much fluid in your body. But yeah, so my water broke at 6:20. At 7:20, they came in and checked me when the shift change happened, and I was between 6 and 7 centimeters. So that was at 7:20 p.m. The midwife who checked me said, okay, that's great, but I still think it's gonna be a while. And me, my mom, Brendan, and the nurse who was also in the room all looked at each other and said, I don't think so. I think this is gonna go quickly, which it was great to prove that midwife wrong, but it was kind of annoying to be right. So this is when things got intense. I started to feel the contractions at this point a lot more. So once my water broke, I started to have a lot stronger contractions, and they were a lot more painful. Also at this point, her heart rate started to drop with each contraction. So they were coming in and flipping me over and putting the peanut ball between my legs and like trying to get her to do better, which it wasn't every contraction that her heart rate was dropping, but it was a good bit to where they were like, okay, no, we need to make sure she's okay. So every time they would flip me over, her heart rate would do better, and then whatever. I don't know. She was like laying on her umbilical cord and then holding it, or I don't know. It was like she just wasn't doing great. So that was at 7:20 the last time I was checked. Started having extreme pain around 8:30, 9 o'clock, and knew that things were progressing. I knew I was in that transition. I just knew because my body was just in excruciating pain. So the anesthesiologist came back in. He gave me another, they call it like a top off of the epidural, and it did nothing. So at 10 o'clock p.m., I started to have a lot of pressure, like things were moving along. So I asked my midwife, I'm like, can you please check me, because I'm starting to feel like something's going on down there. So she checked me, and I was 8 centimeters dilated. I was 100% effaced, so that means my cervix was literally flat and thin, And baby was at a +1, so her head was really low. So she's like, okay, no wonder you're feeling pressure. Your baby is literally right there, and your cervix is almost fully ready. It just needs to dilate just a tad bit more. Well, that's when things got crazy. So if you watch my birth vlog, you will see that the last time I updated was like 2 o'clock in the afternoon. That's because I could not film my birth. One, it would not be appropriate for YouTube. Nobody would want to watch that. I promise you. I promise you, you would not want to watch that. It was insane. The amount of pain that I was in at that point was so bad that the midwife called the anesthesiologist in and said, this epidural is doing nothing. You need to come and check her epidural and see what's going on. So he came in, because sometimes your epidural can kind of just come out a little bit, so sometimes they just have to push it back in and then give you another push of the medicine and you're okay. But my devastating news came when the anesthesiologist said, oh no, this epidural is not in the right spot. So basically it was too low and was only numbing me from the bottom of my hips down. So only my legs were numb and only the left leg was numb. So it was in the completely wrong spot. And he tested that, tested his theory by putting this bag of ice on my leg. And he's like, do you feel that? And I was like, not really. And then he put it on my stomach and he put it on my arm. And he's like, do those feel the same? I was like, yep, exactly the same. So he's like, yeah. Okay, so here's what we can do. He's like, we can place it again. Well, if you don't know anything about getting an epidural, you have to sit so still. You cannot move. Well, at this point in my labor, I was writhing. So there was no way in hell I was gonna be able to sit still for another epidural. And the first experience was not a good one. So I was not about to agree to that. I was like, you know what? Screw it, I'm doing it natural. Which, now that I look back on it, I probably should have got the epidural, but it's okay. She's here, I'm safe, whatever, it's fine. At this point, my heart rate was going so high, they were afraid I was going to go into, like, I don't know, shock or whatever. I really don't know what happens when your heart rate goes that high, but just to give you a point of reference, it's supposed to be between 60 and 90 beats per minute. My heart rate was at 175 every time I had a contraction because the pain was so unbearable that, yeah. So she did turn around by this point, so all the contractions were in my front, thank God. So by now, my whole support team is basically just trying to get me through the contractions to get me to open up. At about 11 o'clock, I remember screaming that my body was pushing. So I thought, okay, there's no way I'm not 10 centimeters dilated by now. This baby is coming. Well, when my midwife stuck her finger in my cervix, I was not 10 centimeters. I was 9. So to hear that devastating news was horrible because my body wanted to push. I wanted to push. The only relief that I got was doing these little mini pushes that my midwife was allowing me to do. At 11:30 p.m., I got checked again, and I was 9.5. So, at 11:30 p.m., 9.5 centimeters. However, I had an anterior lip in my cervix, which meant that there was a little piece in the front of my cervix that was not dilating. So, my wonderful midwife stuck her finger in my cervix and said, okay, start pushing. So, she mechanically got that lip to move out of the way. At 12 o'clock a.m., I began the actual pushes. I was fully dilated. Nobody even really told me I was fully dilated. She just basically said, okay, with the next contraction, I want you to open your legs as wide as you can and start pushing. I mean, that's basically what she told me. So I had Brennan on one side, my mom on the other. They held my legs, and I started pushing, and it felt great. But then the pressure of her head in my lady parts was intense. So I was not prepared for natural labor by any means of the word. you know what? I'm gonna pause this and go get her because I think she's waking up. Whoa, lighting. Okay, I have her now. So I'm gonna try to do this, finish up really quick because she's kind of fussy right now and she's kind of spitting up a little bit. So I'm gonna try to finish this. 12 o'clock, I started pushing. I pushed for 1 hour and 11 minutes, and at 1:11 a.m. my beautiful baby girl was born. I ended up tearing in 2 places, which honestly didn't hurt as much as like getting her out. Like honestly, I think it was the amount of pressure and stuff of like pushing her. Like it literally feels like you're like pooping a bowling ball, like, just to put it lightly. So yeah, that was pretty much the end of that. And then she came out and she was perfect and beautiful and everybody was crying and cheering, and I felt so delirious that I barely could hold her. I should probably mention that during the pushing I was passing out in between pushes because I was so tired from being in so much pain. And yeah, apparently my pain tolerance is a lot lower than I thought it was. But anyway, she is here now and she is gorgeous. And so anyway, so on October 19th, 2019, 1:11 a.m., weighing 7 pounds, 13 ounces, and she was 21.5 inches long, Ashlyn Rain Rebellini made it into the world, and she's so perfect, and I'm gonna show you guys her in 1 second, but I just wanted to finish up the story. So that is my birth story. I will pick up from there in my postpartum update, because I will be doing a postpartum update. Probably gonna film it right now or at least when I get her a little bit more settled. So thank you guys so much for watching. I'm gonna show you my little girl in 1 second, but make sure you hit that like button if you liked this video. Make sure you leave comments down below if you so feel, and don't forget to subscribe because she's so cute and you know you want to see more of this little angel. So this is 3 weeks later. Sorry about the timing. Here is my little princess, and she's so perfect. She's literally perfect. She's literally a baby doll. Yeah, so thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time. Say bye. Bye.